The neon sign outside the diner flickered erratically, casting broken shards of light across the rain-slicked street. Inside, the smell of fried food and stale coffee mixed with the tension that hung heavier than the fog rolling in from the harbor. Rachel, a young waitress with tired eyes and hands calloused from endless shifts, moved carefully between tables, carrying plates and coffee cups. But tonight, her movements were different. Every step felt like a countdown to something she couldn't avoid. Her heart thumped against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat that threatened to give away the secret she carried. In her apron pocket was a small folded note, scrawled hastily with the words that could destroy a man, or save him. "Your girlfriend sold you out. They're in position." Rachel had never imagined she would be here, playing a role in a dangerous game she didn't understand. But life had a way of forcing ordinary people into extraordinary circumstances. She had grown up in the shadow of the city's criminal underworld, where whispers of betrayal could mean a lifetime behind bars, or worse. And yet, she had never expected to cross paths with Dominic Carter, the man sitting at the back booth, calm and commanding, even in the chaos that followed his every move. Dominic, with his steel-gray eyes and an aura that could both intimidate and mesmerize, was known as one of the most feared Mafia bosses in the Midwest. To anyone else, he was untouchable. To Rachel, he had become human. It all started weeks ago when Rachel had noticed subtle cracks in the world she served him. Dominic had a girlfriend, Veronica, beautiful and poised, but something about her never felt right. She always seemed to watch him a little too closely, ask questions that weren't hers to ask, and leave too early when danger lurked. Rachel had learned to read people the hard way, growing up in a neighborhood where survival meant noticing the smallest shifts in behavior. And she had seen it in Veronica, fear disguised as loyalty, hesitation disguised as love. Tonight, Rachel couldn't stay silent. She knew Dominic's life was at risk, and the truth had to reach him before it was too late. As she approached his booth, her hands shook slightly, not from fear of him, but from the weight of the choice she was making. She slid the note across the table as casually as she could, maintaining a practiced smile while her mind raced. The diner's old clock ticked loudly above, as if counting down the seconds until everything changed. Dominic's hand hovered over the paper, his eyes narrowing as he picked it up and read. The color drained from his face, but his composure never wavered. He looked up, and for the briefest moment, their eyes met. In that look, a silent understanding passed between them, a fleeting bond forged in trust and desperation. If this had been a movie, that moment would have been the climax, the turning point when everything fell into place. But real life doesn't come with clear cuts or dramatic music. Real life is messy, terrifying, and often cruel. Rachel knew that by helping Dominic, she had painted a target on her own back. She had to watch as the world she thought she understood twisted into chaos around her. Hours later, sirens would wail in the distance. Shadows would move with deadly precision, and Dominic would be forced to act with the kind of ruthless decisiveness that had built his empire. But at this moment, time slowed, and everything else faded except for the pounding in her chest and the dangerous truth she had delivered. Dominic didn't speak, didn't ask for explanations. He simply stood, placing a careful hand on hers for just a second. A touch that conveyed gratitude, acknowledgement, and perhaps something more complex that neither of them had words for. Then he disappeared into the rainy night, leaving Rachel alone in the diner, with her life hanging by a thread and her heart aching with a mix of fear and hope. She sat at the counter, gripping a coffee cup that had long gone cold, and wondered if anyone outside these walls could ever understand the courage it took just to do the right thing. Moments like these test a person's soul. Rachel had made countless small choices in her life that seemed insignificant, helping a neighbor with groceries, offering a comforting word to someone in despair, showing up for work even when it was the last thing she wanted to do. None of those choices had felt as monumental as this one. And yet, in the quiet aftermath, she realized something profound. Courage isn't always about fighting or winning. Sometimes, it's simply about standing for what's right, even when the world doesn't notice, even when no one else will. The following days were a blur of tension and secrecy. Rachel avoided the streets she once walked freely, fearing retaliation or discovery. But every time she heard news of a sudden arrest, a foiled plot, or a mysterious escape from danger, she knew that Dominic had survived, and she had been a part of that survival. It wasn't just the fear of being caught that weighed on her. It was the knowledge of human frailty, the fragility of trust, and the shocking power of one small act to alter the course of someone's life. Her reflections were interrupted by a knock on the diner's back door one rainy evening. She opened it cautiously, expecting a customer or a neighbor, but instead found Dominic, looking worn but unbroken. His eyes softened as they met hers, the kind of look that speaks volumes in silence. Without a word, he handed her a small envelope, heavy with cash, letters of gratitude, and a single photograph of him smiling, a rare moment of vulnerability captured for her eyes alone. Dominic knew she could leave, disappear into the shadows of her own life, and he would never forget what she had done. But in that silent gesture, Rachel realized something else. True respect and trust can exist even in the darkest of worlds. As days turned into weeks, Rachel began to heal from the adrenaline-fueled fear, but the memories of that night remained etched in her mind. She returned to her routine at the diner, serving coffee and pie, but with a renewed sense of purpose. She had been a quiet hero, invisible to most, yet capable of changing the fate of someone she admired from afar. And sometimes, the most powerful acts of courage are those that never make the headlines, those that ripple silently through the lives of the people they touch. In the months that followed, Rachel's story remained largely unknown, whispered only among the few who had witnessed her bravery. She would never become famous or wealthy from her choices, but she had discovered something far more valuable: the power of conscience, the strength in standing for truth, and the unexpected beauty of selfless courage. And as she wiped down counters and poured coffee, she sometimes thought of Dominic, imagining him continuing to navigate his treacherous world, alive because of her, and perhaps, in some unspoken way, connected to her forever. Life has a way of testing who we are, and sometimes it presents opportunities to rise above fear in ways we never expect. Rachel had faced danger, deception, and moral uncertainty, yet she had chosen the right path, and in doing so, she had proven that ordinary people are capable of extraordinary acts when the stakes are highest. If this story moved you even a little, if it reminded you of the power of kindness, second chances, and courage, please like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs inspiration, and subscribe to the channel to support stories that touch the heart. Rachel's journey reminds us that even when life feels uncertain and terrifying, small acts of bravery can create waves that change everything. As you leave a comment below, think about someone in your life who might need a reminder of hope and courage today. Before we end, I'd love for you to leave a comment sharing how this story touched your heart, because your thoughts mean more than you know. Sometimes the world doesn't notice heroes like Rachel, but that doesn't make their courage any less real. The note she slipped, the risk she took, and the silent strength she carried remind us all that even the smallest choices can save a life, protect love, and leave an unshakable mark on someone else's story.